Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where I take your questions regarding the American accent, pronunciation, sounds, words, things that you find difficult to pronounce in English, and we always talk about topics for American accent training. I'd like to give you a quick tip you can use right away to start improving your personal and professional communication in English. We'll do that at the end today. Today, you can ask any questions about anything related to the American accent. Simply type your questions in the chat here on YouTube, and I will answer your questions. So many of you have been participating in our American Sounds Challenge. We've been having free live videos every few days looking at all of the sounds of American English and talking about accent error patterns you may have on those sounds, teaching you how to correct those error patterns in common words and how to build those new American accent patterns into your everyday speech. Hi, great, welcome everyone, nice to see you. And so today in our question and answer class, I'll take questions about what we've been talking about in the American Sounds Challenge. I'll review a little bit what we've been looking at, and I want to spend some time today sharing with you some free resources that you can use to improve your American accent. There's a lot of information out there on the internet, on YouTube, for learning to improve your American accent, and it can be somewhat overwhelming. So I'm going to make some recommendations on how to best use resources, where to start, how to focus, to make the right changes for you. Everyone's an individual and everyone has different needs when it comes to communication in American English, but there are some things that apply to most people who are trying to improve their American accent, and I try to focus on those things, so I'll give you some tips for that as well. We have our first question. Robbie wants to know how to pronounce our. So she's asking for our as in our class, our lesson, our website. And that word O-U-R is pronounced the same way as the word hour, like 1 hour, a 1 hour class. And if I were to look at the IPA for hour, I start with the diphthong ow, which looks like this. And then I have the the American R sound. So that might not mean that much to you. These are the IPA symbols for the sounds. Another way I could think about it is saying more of an ah, ow, moving to an O or a sound, and then moving to the sound. And so going slowly on this word, our, can really help you sequence and building from the back. So just saying or, our. There's really not so much of that O sound really. When I break it down that way, I can hear that that's not there. The other thing that you might notice is that our, that I tend to, when I move from this rounded ow, into the I tend to glide those two together and there's kind of a w sound in there. So another way to think of it is ow, like ow, that hurts, our. Good, so that's a very frequently used word that's a little bit challenging because it slides between many vowels, and you have to do what's called vowel to vowel linking. That's where that W sound sneaks in. You can learn more about vowel to vowel linking. I have a video about it, talks about how this works for other vowel sounds as well. To find any of the videos that I'm talking about, if I don't have the link handy, I will recommend videos during class, and what I would suggest is that there's 2 good resources for you. One, go to my website, speechmodification.com, and up here in the menu, you'll see that there's free practice. And what you want to look at is the online practice free trial. And that's where I have many lessons and videos and resources for you to answer your questions. So if you were looking and you wanted to know more about that vowel to vowel linking, I could type that in, vowel to vowel, and probably that'll be enough. I don't need to type in the whole thing. When I use that search tool, then all of the things that talk about, all the lessons that talk about that topic are there. So here's my vowel to vowel linking topic. So that's one place to look for more information to follow up on your questions from class. And then the other place would be to go right to my YouTube channel. You're my YouTube viewers, so you may be familiar that on my channel page, you can find a lot of information, both in my playlists, in my upcoming live streams, and then using the search tools on my channel page as well. So you could type in vowels or type in your word, and the videos related to that will come up. Thank you for the great question. We have some more questions. Sorry to wake you up, Ismail. You were sleeping when you heard the notification, but I'm glad you made it to class. So Junior has a difficult word for him, which is uncooperative. Yes, so that has a similar situation with moving between vowels. So if I look at uncooperative, it's also a long word, a lot of sounds in there. So there could be many things that are tripping you up. In general, uncooperative. The stress is here on the the third syllable, uncooperative. And probably where you're running into trouble is this co-op. So we have the O, and then the same thing, we're gliding into the ah vowel, and we kind of have a hidden little W in there. So co-wa, uncooperative. And then these are quick syllables, so uncooperative. We have to move quickly enough on those unstressed syllables. And there's an R in there and a V sound at the end. You want to make sure that you have that voiced sound. So hopefully that helps you pinpoint what's going on. When you're noticing particular words that are difficult for you, you may find a pattern. If you start writing those words down, you start looking at what are the sounds in the word. It may be because of particular sounds. You may struggle with the R sound. You may struggle with the V sound. Identifying which sounds it is that are difficult for you can help you practice on your particular word, as well as additional words that have those sounds, so that you're able to use those correct patterns more easily and more regularly in your speech. We'll look at how to know what sound patterns you have as we look at the resources in class today. Bahram wants to know more about reduction and rhythm. Sure. So you're probably thinking about intonation patterns, so the rhythm of speech, the stress patterns. A great place to look for more information about that is on my intonation playlist. So there are many videos where I'm specifically focusing on intonation, both looking at particular words and phrases, knowing how to stress them, as well as intonation patterns in general. So one of the types of videos that I have in my intonation playlist, and I also have what's called my Real Talk playlist. And this is going to be very helpful for you, Bahram, in your question about reductions and connections and intonation, because I take everyday sentences. For example, let's see, how about the sentence, I am going to go to the meeting. Okay, going to go to the meeting. So when I write that out, I am going to go to the meeting. If I break between every word, read it, and pronounce every sound, that doesn't sound very fluent or very natural, does it? In natural speech, I wouldn't be breaking. I would be linking and connecting. And I would be stressing, I'm going to go to the meeting. My main stress would be here because it's the last content word towards the end of the phrase. So here's some reductions that I would do. For example, in this phrase, I wouldn't say I am, I'd say I'm. Americans almost always use contractions. It's correct, it's formal, it's professional, and I suggest you use it because I am going sounds a lot less smooth and fluent than I'm going, especially when there's multiple verbs. We're going to contract those helping verbs like am. I'm going to go to the meeting. I'm not saying going to go to. These become reduced to a schwa sound. I'm going to go to the meeting. And we link going and to. Sometimes it sounds a little more like a D there than a T. I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the meeting. This sounds professional. It's not slang. It's not informal. And then to the meeting, making sure that I'm fairly quick. I'm going to go to the meeting. These are all fast, and then my stress and my length lands on meeting. So this sentence is just an example of what you'll find in my Real Talk videos, as well as on my intonation playlist, to help you look at reductions and to help you look at what happens for intonation in connected speech, as well as I mentioned before, there are videos teaching you the basics of intonation, how to practice, and how to change. So thank you for bringing up that topic. And that's something that we'll do more specific lessons on again in the future, but there are a lot of resources for you on speechmodification.com, as well as my channel page to work on those skills. So Junior asks, can I pronounce T-I-V-E with no D sound, like or with a D sound? Uncooperative. Okay, so yes, when we're saying the T in the middle of words, in many cases, we use something that sounds more like a D. It's not uncooperative. I'm really not using an actual D. I'm using a flap T. So that means instead of uncooperative with a aspirated T, I'm making the T sound, but it's voiced and unaspirated. So more like uncooperative, div. And yes, I think both, you could say either uncooperative or uncooperative, and those are both pretty typical for American speakers. Look at my videos for how to pronounce T in the middle of words to learn more words where we use the flap T or the aspirated T or the stopped T in the middle of words. American T is one of the more complicated sound patterns. In our American Sounds Challenge, we talked about the flap T in our second lesson, lesson 2, because it's a very American sounding sound. So you've identified and noticed in that word uncooperative that Americans really don't use that aspirated T. For more details on that, as I said, you can look for my American T videos. I have several outlining what happens for different words. So significant typically just means something that stands out in terms of importance, its significance. And yeah, so if you're feeling like you have a vocabulary word that you're not sure how to use, what you might want to do is try it in a few sentences, or I really like using the online dictionary, especially the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, because oftentimes they'll give you some example sentences of how it's used. And for many people, for me in particular, and I think others as well, it helps you understand the meaning of it and how to use it better when you see how someone else has used it. And so one thing for learning vocabulary in general is doing more reading. We learn a lot of new words when we're reading things that are at a challenging level for us, and looking up the words as we read, having that context really helps us understand and use new words. So thank you for the suggestion or for the question. Great, Junior. So I'm happy that that cleared that up. And yes, it's a complicated, flap T is something that's useful to look at some more information on and how we use it. Yes, so Robbie just corrected, and can't use it. So great questions so far. Keep them coming. Keep asking me about the things that you need help with. I always get the best ideas for what to include in my videos and in my online courses based on your questions. It tells me what people need help with. And I want to mention in my online courses right now, I have them all set up for 2-week free trials. So you can go to speechmodification.com, go to my courses page, and check out those courses for free for 2 weeks. A great way to see if the online course, the video courses, are useful for you, if they help you take the next steps in your practice in improving your speech and improving your accent. And they also are all on sale for a very low subscription cost. So you can take them for 2 weeks for free, and then they're less than $5 a month after that. So if you've been looking at and trying to make some improvements, it's a great way to help you navigate through all of the information that's out there and walk you through steps of making changes personally in your own speech. Yes, and I'm continuing, as I said, with the American Sounds Challenge. Our next class for that will be on Monday at 9 o'clock Pacific time, and we'll be looking at, I have to check. Oh, we'll be looking at the D sound, particularly at the ends of words, but we'll look at the accent error patterns you have for that, and also how we use this sound when we're making words past tense. And so that's useful for both pronunciation and for not allowing your accent to make it sound like you're making a grammatical mistake. So check that out on Monday morning. In our playlist so far, we have had 14 lessons. We've looked at a number of vowel sounds, a number of consonant sounds, and we've been looking overall at sound patterns and how to make changes in your speech. So a combination of looking at specific patterns, practicing those patterns, and understanding overall how our accent works, why we have an accent, and how to change our speech is the goal of this challenge and of my materials for you. So you can check those out from the start on the American Sounds playlist. And you can also use that to look for specific sounds that you have challenges with. So how do I know what sounds I might need to work on if I'm a non-native speaker? There's a couple of things that I offer you to help you with this. Number one, if you go to my website, speechmodification.com, you can take a free screening and I will get back to you with specific feedback for you on your speech. And so this is something that you might find helpful if you're having a little difficulty. Maybe you know about some patterns, some sounds you have trouble with, but maybe you're not sure, like which vowel sounds am I getting right and which vowel sounds do I need help with. And so if you go to speechmodification.com, you'll see right here the free screening, and you just click on that, and it gives you a list of some words and some recording tools. Basically, you make a recording of yourself saying some words and sentences, and then I will listen to that and get back to you with some tips for you on what to work on. So that's one resource for you. In addition, you can go to my store page and you'll see that what I have here for you are a lot of free downloads. And so you might want to check those out. There's a lot of different information, but what I want to point out now is my overviews of accent. So as we've talked about in many of my classes, we have an accent because our native language sets up our brain to hear sound patterns that are in our native language. And that sound system in our brain acts like a filter when we're listening to new languages, second and third languages, and also when we're speaking languages other than our native language. And so sometimes the sounds coming in, we don't hear the difference between those sounds and the sounds in our native language. And so these accent overviews will tell you in your native language, what are the typical sound patterns that you might have errors on when you're speaking English. It gives you the sound, it gives you the details about what the error is, and some example words so you can understand that. For example, as we were talking about with just the D sound, for some people, they have a pattern of de-voicing that sound. So they might be trying to say words like need and had and code, and it might sound in their speech more like neat and hat and coat. That D sound sounds more like a T sound. And you can find out what those patterns are for your native language. You may not have every single one of those patterns, but if you look at these accent overviews, you probably will find that, oh yeah, I might do that pattern. That sounds familiar to me when you're thinking about your own speech and when you're listening to other people around you with your same native language speaking English. So 2 resources on the website, the free screening and the overviews of accent, help you know what to work on in your speech in American English. We have another question. Or comment about Greek mythology. I'll have to check that out. Percy Jackson books. Okay, thanks, Junior. Then in addition to the screening and using the overview of accent to know what you need to work on in your speech, you might also try to note when you're speaking English, when you're talking to people around you in English, if there are situations where someone asks you to repeat yourself, or you notice from looking at someone's face that maybe they didn't understand you, try to note, try to pay attention to what was it that you said at that time. Maybe it's on particular words, maybe it's in particular speaking situations, but these are the situations where you're going to want to pay a little more attention and try to improve, because the goal, of course, is not necessarily to not have any accent at all, but it's to be well understood when you're speaking English. Yes, many people also have a goal of having an American accent, and my courses, my resources and my training will help you achieve that goal. But my primary mission, and yours should be too, is to be well understood and clear when speaking English. And then, of course, you can always take it further to having an American accent, to having all of those little details of the American accent. But if you're trying to speak with people and they don't understand you well, that's clearly going to be an impediment for you personally and professionally. So taking advantage of, if it does happen that someone asks you to repeat or doesn't understand you, pay attention. What did you just say? What were the words? And then examine, okay, is it because of certain sounds in those words? Is it particular words that this always happens to me when someone doesn't understand? Or is it particular situations? Is it over the phone or when you're in meetings? Maybe you're well understood at work when you're talking about technical things, but not so well understood when you're just socializing, or vice versa. Maybe when you're talking to people about everyday topics, you're well understood, but when you're trying to make a sales call or a presentation, you feel that people don't understand you well. So understanding for you where your difficult speaking tasks are and what your difficult speaking words and phrases are, it gives you a starting point for what you need to work on in your speech. Okay, I'm going to stop. Thank you for your kind greetings, everyone. Robbie says she can understand what I'm saying, but she can't understand movies. And this is a big problem. Yes, so many television shows and movies speak very quickly. They can use slang, they can use dialects. It can be difficult to follow along and understand. Fortunately, for many, many things we watch these days, you can turn on the closed captioning. And I recommend, rather than turning on subtitles in your native language, actually look for the CC, turn on closed captioning in English, because when you follow along with the written words in English, number one, it helps you understand better what the people are saying. But number two, there's also been research to show that it can help you with your pronunciation, because it helps you find all of those little words that we are saying quickly, that we are reducing, and make a connection between what the written language is and what the spoken language is, how our spoken language differs from our written language, and how Americans actually talk. This is what I'm trying to point out to you in my Real Talk videos, and that can be helpful as a transition for moving from something like listening to my videos, which you can understand, and then moving into things that you're still struggling to understand. So using that closed captioning. On YouTube, you can turn on closed captioning for most videos. Now, for some videos, the captions are not the greatest language, but for many, they're quite good. So let's just, for example, look at one of my videos, and just clicking on my American R playlist, and I'm going to just click on my American R video. And this is where I turn on the captioning. So if I look at the settings button, I can go up there in the corner. I clicked on those three dots, and right here it says captions. And I can just turn them on, English, auto-generated. So you can do this for YouTube videos. Most of the time, if you're watching a DVD or streaming a movie, they have captions as well. Netflix has captions. And then when I resume the video, you'll see that there are captions. So they're following along with the words that I'm saying. And then you can, again, match up your listening skills and use your reading and writing skills to help you. Another setting that I like on YouTube is the playback speed. I can use this and I can slow down the video. You can't always do this on regular TV or movies, but what I find is if I play it back at 0.75 instead of 1.0, gives me more chance to hear what's happening, to hear all of the words and the grammar, but it's not so slow that it sounds really unnatural. So those are 2 tips for using captions and using playback speed to help you understand YouTube videos better and to help improve your listening and your speaking in English. I do have a video about that. If you go to my channel page, Speech Modification Seattle, type in the search box using YouTube to help, and I have a video that shows you those steps that I just demonstrated in class. Learn English has a question. Can you please say literally? Yes, so literally is a challenging word for many people because it has the L's, the R's, and that flap T in the middle. I do have a video breaking down how to learn how to pronounce literally. And again, go to either my website, speechmodification.com, or my YouTube channel, type in the search tool, literally, and that video will come up. So that's a great suggestion. Many people have asked for that word before, and so I have made a video to help you with that. Learn English also says, I speak with a British accent and I want to turn it into American. Can I do it? If yes, how can I do it? Certainly. That's something where looking at the differences between British pronunciation and American English pronunciation can be very helpful. I do have a few videos talking about that, specifically, for example, how the British say are in the middle of ends of words versus how Americans say that. So British people will use a schwa vowel for those R's. They'll say paper and bird, where Americans will say paper and bird. They use tight back R. So you can look for British English on my channel page and you'll see that video. And in addition, they have some vowel differences. So basically the same thing, you just need to learn which patterns are different for you versus the American patterns. You might also like the online dictionary resource I always recommend, which is the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, because you can type in any word and it'll show you the British pronunciation and the American English pronunciation. And so that's a resource that I often use to check myself for pronunciation patterns. And so I'm going to put that in here for you and show you that resource, Oxford Learner's Dictionaries. And you just need to have it set on English, and then it'll show you both. So let's, for example, look at the word advertisement. So in American English, we say advertisement. We stress the first syllable. We use vowel a. In British English, they say advertisement. They stress the second syllable, and they use a schwa. So I can listen to both. Advertisement for British.
Advertisement.
Advertisement. I actually say advertisement. And they're saying advertisement in American English. So even the dictionary and I don't always agree about everything, but that's another resource for you for learning the difference between British and American English. And my videos that teach about American English will apply to you as well. And you'll begin to notice as you develop your ear for American English what those differences are and how to change over into more of an American accent if that's your goal. Great. Okay, so thank you so much for all your questions. I'm going to spend just a few more minutes talking about some free resources. And many of the things I wanted to tell you about in terms of free resources came up because of your questions today. So thank you for those great questions. Yes, another question. What books should I read that you read before? If you're talking about American accent books, there are quite a few out there, and I have to say some of them I like for some things, and I don't like for other things. So I will suggest looking at speechmodification.com, and you can read my blog page there because those lessons I draw on the resources of books that I've read. I personally have a free ebook that you can get on speechmodification.com that talks about the SMART method, my method for American accent training. SMART stands for speech modifications, accent reduction technique. So that's the research-based technique that I've developed for improving your American accent. So on my main page on speech modification, you can see my free ebook and download that. That's a great starting point for developing those skills. There's another question. When you say the word little, does the tongue bounce in the same place for all of the letters? Yes, so the L sound, L, the T sound, or the flap T, D, D, little, it does return for all of the consonant sounds back up to the tongue behind the teeth. Those are called alveolar sounds, and that basically means my tongue touches up to my alveolar ridge, which is the bumpy ridge right behind my teeth on the top of my mouth. So you're correct when I say little. I'm just moving my tongue up and down from forward to go up to the L, to go up to the flap T, and then back up to the final L. The shape of my tongue for that first L in little or little, the shape for that first L is slightly different than the shape for the second L, because when I say the L at the end of a word, I'm using a schwa sound before it. I'm saying oh, oh. And so the back of my tongue is more down, and there's more space there in the oh part of little. And when I'm saying the front L, the L at the beginning of the word, little, my tongue is more lifted overall. And so that's the only difference. But the contact point for the tip of my tongue for both is right behind my teeth there on the alveolar ridge. Great question. Okay, so the quick tip for today is related to what I was talking about how there's so much information out there, how to best take advantage of the resources. And so I would just suggest that using the information I've told you about, the speech screening, the overview of accent, your own analysis of speaking situations where you've noticed you have to repeat or you've noticed difficulty, and select one small goal. So don't think about everything that needs to change. Just take it one step at a time and pick something small. Hold yourself accountable to meeting that goal and set yourself up for success with reminding yourself to practice, reminding yourself what your goal is and how you're going to achieve it, and taking little steps, very small steps to change it, and maybe building in some things to reward yourself along the way. Of course, ultimately, the reward of doing this hard work is to improve your communication, to be well understood, to have the American accent. But along the way, you might need a little bit of incentive. So thinking about ways you can build that into your daily life, the regular practice, and then the reward for doing that hard work is the best way to stick with it and achieve. Coming to my American Accent Challenge classes, using my videos and resources, and setting yourself aside a few minutes a day for that type of practice is going to really help you see an improvement. You don't need to sit down for hours and hours and work on this, but you do need to sit down regularly and do something to make a change. I often tell my students and my clients, don't add this to your long list of things that you need to do. Try to find a way to be practicing and improving in something you're already doing. So if you drive to work, practice for 5 minutes on your drive, or if you have to wash the dishes or fold the laundry or even take a shower, you can practice your speech a little bit while you're doing that. Say some words you're working on, say some sound patterns you're working on, and use some of the practice techniques I talk about in my videos during those times or when you're already doing something else. If you're stuck in the car or if you're doing a task that doesn't require you to spend a lot of time thinking about it, it's a great time to also practice your speech. And also try to set yourself up with some way to remember what you're practicing and what you're working on. So a reminder on your phone, a sticky note on the computer, or in your book that you're reading or on the steering wheel of your car. We have good intentions about making changes and improvements, but sometimes we forget and the day goes by and we haven't worked. So those are just some suggestions, the quick tip for today on how to improve and take advantage of the resources and tools that are available to you. Please, last one. How can I say the light D like leader? Let's see. So leader, in the word leader, it's a regular D sound. So I'm just saying der, leader. And the flap T is usually spelled with the letter T. So leader, L-I-T-E-R, sounds very similar to leader, L-E-A-D-E-R. So the leader bought a liter of fuel. So yes, if you say one, you can say both in a fairly similar manner. They're almost the exact same pronunciation. All right, so thank you so much, everyone who attended class today, for all of your great questions. If you're watching this as a replay, you can put your questions in the comments, and I will get back to you with where you can find the answer, either on speechmodification.com or on my YouTube videos, my YouTube channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I suggest that you do that, and then you click on the notifications bell, and YouTube will let you know when I'm live and when I've uploaded new videos for you. We'll meet again next Friday at 12 Pacific Standard Time to take your questions for our free training question and answer class. And the next American Sounds Challenge lesson will be on Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. We'll be talking about the D sound in American English. So I hope you can join me for that. And I'm going to take one more question before I sign off. Little versus water, the same tongue. Yes, so in the word little and the word water, I'm using a flap T for both of those. The word little also has the syllabic L at the end that I talked about with that schwa sound, little. I have a video for both of those words separately and a video that talks about both little and water. So again, use the search tools on Speech Modification Seattle. In that search box on my channel page, just type in the word little or the word water and you'll see those videos, and that'll help you walk through those details and those steps. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here today. I look forward to seeing you in the next class. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.